Do you have something inspiring to say? Have you always known that your voice can contribute to the world? Is now the time? Yes, now is the time. The world is waiting for you. Welcome to the Inspired Choices Network Open Mic Spotlight Show. Today, we have an inspiring guest who is ready to share their voice with the world. Now, on to the show.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Open Mic Spotlight Show. I have another unique guest that I am going to be sharing with our network audience, and we are going to be speaking to Doug Buchanan on the how to use the power of subconscious to release your past and enhance your life now. We're going to dive into all things about Doug and see what we can be creating together. So Doug Buchanan is a practitioner and experienced trainer in hypnosis, regression, Reiki, sound healing, and other energy-based techniques. He has managed training programs in England, Scotland, Mexico, South Africa, and Sardinia, and worked in many other countries. He is also the founder of CARA, the Center for Transformational Learning, where many energy-based workshops and courses are facilitated. And you can find that website at caracendre.com. He has also trained hundreds upon hundreds of students in various modalities and has worked with thousands upon thousands of one-to-one clients. He has a private practice in Buckinghamshire in the UK, and his main website is dougbuchanan.com. So welcome, Doug. How are you today?
Hi there, Christine. I'm absolutely fabulous. How are you?
I am wonderful, too. I'm so happy that we were able to connect and we were able to get you on to the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, it's lovely to be here, and thank you for the invite.
You're welcome. So, Doug, why don't you tell us a little bit more, kind of start to bring us into what it is that you're referring to when you're talking about how to use the power of subconscious to release our past and enhance our lives.
Well, I'm a firm believer that at its heart, life is basically energy. All of our emotions, all of our thoughts, all of our physicality is energy. And Einstein kind of proved that to us with his quantum theories nearly 100 years ago when he said everything in the universe is energy vibrating at certain frequencies. And the people that I work with and the people that I train, often they come along with problems, with issues which are present in there. They may be emotional issues, they may be relationship issues, often the same thing. There may be physical issues or thoughts that they can't get by. And the root of all of these issues that people can't get by to move their life forward in some way is generally in what's referred to as the subconscious. If it was sitting there in the conscious mind, the part that we use on an everyday basis while we're chatting, we'd probably be able to change our lives instantaneously and would all be living fabulous lives. But as it is, most people are kind of searching for a little bit more. Most people have things in their life that they would like to improve or change in some way. And what I find is the majority of the time, those things are lurking or hidden or even suppressed in some way in our subconscious.
Cool. So how long have you been doing this work for, Doug?
I started out doing this work about 12 years ago now. I kind of fell into it by accident. I discovered hypnosis is one of the main things that I work with, and I used to have a big issue in my life was that I used to smoke. And, I could stop smoking. I have pretty strong willpower, and I could stop smoking for 3 months. I could stop smoking for 6 weeks, but something would trigger. Perhaps it was a glass of wine on a Friday night. Perhaps it was a heated discussion with the girlfriend at the time, and something would make me start smoking again. And after 2 years of stopping on and off, I found my way to a hypnotherapist. I went into a hypnotic trance, and during the hour experience, I let go of whatever it was in my subconscious that was stopping or keeping me smoking and stopping me from stopping, and I never smoked again. And after 2 years of trying on and off, and then suddenly being able to stop just like that, my very curious mind got activated. And that was when I went off and started studying hypnosis and various other modalities.
That is so cool. And so you've been smoke-free now for 12 years, and you've discovered an absolutely amazing capacity all in one.
Yeah, I think, often what I find with people is that we have a story that brings us to our purpose in life. Often there's a little bit of a moment in life sometimes where things aren't going quite right, and suddenly they turn around, and that can often lead us into our purpose. And hypnosis and regression in particular are very much a part of the purpose of why I believe I'm living this life.
That's phenomenal. So you've been doing this for 12 years, and so you have a private practice that you're doing it with, yes?
Yes, that's right, yes.
Do people always come in person to have these hypnosis done, or is that something you can do distance as well?
I do work with distance. I'm a little bit, let's say I put a little bit of quality control on the distance work that I do. Sometimes, especially when I work with regression, there's a lot of emotion comes up with people, and I do need to ensure that the people that I work with distantly are able to manage that. So I don't sometimes the people who want to come for regression, sometimes I suggest that it's better to come in person rather than by Skype, but I do Skype. It just depends sometimes how big of the issue is, sometimes how well the person can contain themselves afterwards. It's really important that sometimes when we clear things in life that people are able to look after and support themselves adequately. And, when they come in person, I can do that really well. But, it's a little bit harder distantly, obviously.
Right. So what is, I think you've mentioned that you do past life regression as well. Is that correct, Doug?
I do. That's one of the main things that I do. And I just reframe that slightly, Christine, and say regression therapy. Part of, when people come along for regression is what might happen is that they go back into what we call a past life experience. But sometimes, we're working with current life issues as well. And it's pretty much a known fact in psychology that the first 7 years of our life are extremely formative. So regression may be current or past life. And, sometimes I even get people who go back to womb experiences as well.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. So what's the thing that you enjoy doing the most? I mean, you do the hypnosis, you do the regression, and are there other modalities that you have as well? I'm in a very privileged position, Christine, because I love what I do, and I love everything that I do. And kind of when I stop loving it, then I think it's probably time to stop. Because if I can't do it with passion and integrity, then I'm not going to give what the person sitting opposite me or what the group in the same room as me needs. So, I love everything that I do. I do have a particular passion for regression. I think it's amazing. I think it can be a game changer for many, many people today. There's a lot of stuff that I believe that, as souls we reincarnate time after time. And I think sometimes there's something in our history that may be stopping us living the life we truly want to live today. And I find that a lot of the times regression can unlock that. And I find that amazing. I get a little bit blasé about it at times. I remember when I first started doing regressions, and people would come in and they'd have these amazing results, and they'd send me an email, they'd bring me up afterwards and say, hey, my life has changed dramatically. It might be physically, emotionally, financially, whatever it would be. And I was getting what I call jaw droppers. Literally, I'd be, wow, I can't believe that's happened. And, when it had been happening for a little while, I got a little bit blasé about it, to be honest with you. I tended to expect that people would get these amazing results. And, of course, that's not always the case. But, I think the thing that I love most is the fact that
sometimes, a lot of the time, but not always, of course, I can help people to bring amazing transformation to themselves. Things that they've forgotten, things that they've suppressed can be reframed. They can be remembered and reframed. And the fact that I'm part of that process, sometimes a small part, because I believe that we all do the healing for ourselves, sometimes a bigger part. Sometimes I have to guide them a little bit more. But the fact that I'm part of that process is what I love. I love seeing people make positive change in their life, and I have a great job.
Yeah, it is wonderful to see that. So, Doug, you had this miraculous regression yourself, and that unlocked something for you. Did you also take additional training to become as versed as you are in these modalities?
Yeah, I did. When I stopped smoking, really, I swapped one addiction for another in a way, and I got totally addicted to hypnotherapy and regression. So I did a couple of years training in hypnosis, and I did a year training in regression as well. So I did a bit longer than that, actually. So I fully immersed myself in my subject. I did a year's worth of Reiki training. I did a couple of years in a spiritual healing college. I trained in something called Aura Soma, which is a color therapy. I've done sound healing training. I kind of walk my talk, if you like, and partly it's because I love the changes that it can still bring for me, but partly it's also because I love it. I just love being around people like this who are on a journey, on a path of self-improvement, self-development, and are ringing in the changes for themselves. So yeah,
right. That's fabulous. So how do you know? A lot of people doubt the modalities, these types of modalities, some of the work that I do as well. What do you say when people are looking for evidence that they actually work?
Well, the way in which I work is I never try and persuade anyone, but sometimes, past life regression is a very good example of that. And, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I get people who are at the end of the pier, as I like to say. They've tried everything else, and, they've tried 19 other different therapies, and they come to the regression therapist because they've heard from somebody who's heard from somebody that regression might help them. And I don't even ask them to invest in the belief system around it, but I just ask them to be open to the fact that there's the possibility of change, because what we're doing is we're working with the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind holds a story. Now, I don't even mind whether that story is real or whether it kind of got there by accident or whether it's been drunken in through the TV or the media, but that story that we're looking for is holding that person back in some way. So what I ask them to be is open to the fact that we can help them to change a pattern in their subconscious mind. And really, for me, the proof is in the change that comes. I never try and convince anybody, as I said a minute ago, but really it's their results. Most of the time I work by something, particularly for regression, I use measured symptoms. So if somebody's coming along and they're saying, Doug, I'm not sleeping at night, which is a very common thing, I'll say, okay, how many nights a week is that? And, often it's 7. How bad is it? And they'll say, well, it's 8 out of 10 on a scale between 1 and 10 because it's really messing up my life. And how long does it last? And it'll last an hour or two before that person can go to sleep at night. So what I've got is I've got a tangible reality for that person. I've got some measurements. So what we do is we do the session, and the next time they come back, because often these things are 2 or 3 sessions, I'll be able to take those measurements again. And 99 times out of 100, those measurements have reduced. So that person has some evidence for themselves that something is happening. They may not always understand how, but they have an evidence-based pattern that say, hey, it's only taking me 30 minutes to get to sleep at night. It's only happening 5 nights a week. So they have a tangible, something tangible in their everyday life.
Right. Oh, and when you can't sleep, it can just impact so much of your life. I mean, that would be so evident very, very quickly that something has definitely improved. So that's fantastic.
Well, exactly. I mean, remember that sleep deprivation is used as a form of torture. And that's what it can be, because, when we don't sleep properly, we don't recharge, we get more stressed. And stress, of course, is a big root factor at the source of all illness and many diseases.
Right. Wow. Okay, we are up for our first break, Doug. So we are going to go for our first break, and when we get back, we're going to continue speaking with Doug Buchanan. Buchanan, am I saying that correctly?
No, you're not. It's Buckingham.
Oh, Buckingham.
For all your North American
God.
listeners, it's exactly like the palace.
Buckingham. My apologies. Oh my gosh, the coffee hasn't kicked in yet.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I was gonna mention it later. I thought I'd let us drift for a while, but that's fine.
Okay, well, please stick around, everyone, for Doug Buckingham and talking about how to use the power of subconscious to release your past and enhance your life. We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
Thank you.
Do you have something inspiring to say? Would you like a taste of being one of our inspired hosts? Get on the air on the Inspired Choices Network Open Mic Spotlight Show. The Open Mic Spotlight Show is your time to shine and inspire our global audience. Shows air at 9 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday each week. Claim your spot today. Simply contact our network owner at info@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Forget the days of 5 minutes of fame. Now you can have 55 minutes of fame. You are listening to the Open Mic Spotlight Show here on Inspired Choices Network. To call in and ask questions, call 815-880-8255 in the U.S., 613-800-8736 in Canada, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. Now back to the show.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have a wonderful guest with me from England, Doug Buckingham. And Doug and I are talking today about how to use the power of the subconscious to release your past and enhance your life now. If you would like to get in touch with Doug, you can do so on Facebook at Doug Buckingham Past Lives, or you can find him on Instagram, Doug_Buckingham. He's also on LinkedIn, Doug Buckingham, Twitter, Doug Buckingham, and Google. It's a really long number, so just Google his name. So it's like, I can't read all that. That's just crazy. You do have a number of different websites. Which is the most prominent website, Doug, that you would like to share?
The best one to find me is dougbuckingham.com. That's easiest. And if there's anything else you need after that, then I can redirect you.
Okay, that's wonderful. All right, so we're talking about, in the first segment we talked about what actually occurred in your life to really bring you into this profession and what you did to enhance your capacities and then what you've been enjoying about this. Tell me, Doug, people always want to know some really amazing stories around what you have seen in your work since you've been doing this. Can you share anything that's occurred with people?
Well, I would like to say, just before I do spill the beans, as it were, that I change all of my stories. I change the sex of the person who comes. I change the age. I change the story a little bit just to protect people, just in case anybody gets slightly recognized. But there is a large grain of truth in everything that I say. So, there's validity in the story. Sometimes people come along for regression experiences, and a common thing that they say afterwards is, was that real or did I just make that up? And, to a large degree, it doesn't matter, because what we're looking for is the therapeutic benefit. And many years ago, I had a guy who was a fellow therapist, actually. He came along and he said, I've always loved the idea of past life regression, but I don't do it. So can you help me? And I said, well, sure. It's really useful to have an intention, to have something that you want to work on. And he said, well, do you know what? I'm a therapist, and I'm drinking a bottle of wine every night, and I'm smoking 20 cigarettes a day. So it's not a particularly healthy lifestyle, and it's not really the image I want to project out to my clients. And I said, okay, fine. So we did some work. We did some hypnotic relaxation, and the guy went into a trance, and he started recounting to me this past life experience where he was in the American Wild West. And I guess the time was about 150 years ago. I'm not that brilliant at the history, so excuse me if I get that slightly wrong. But he was in a typical, I guess, Midwestern town, and he had a job where he was selling ropes, he was selling saddles, he was selling stirrups. So it's like an accessory shop, if you like, for cowboys. And he wasn't particularly good at it. It wasn't particularly successful. And at the end of every night, he'd go into the saloon and he'd have a drink or six. And often what would happen, he'd have an argument. So one of these arguments came up in the regression. And in the argument, typically what you see on TV, there was a gunfight. And the character's life ended as a result of the gunfight. So I did what we always do, which is just go to the place beyond that life where you can do some transformation for it, because it's very important to do transformation for what comes up in these regressions. And we did a bit of work around that, and there was a lot of self-recrimination, if you like, in that life about how the life had been lived. So we released a lot of that. And anyway, we finished the session. At the end of it, the guy said to me, that was great, but I feel as I made that up. And I explained that, that's okay. Sometimes it feels like that when there's a deep story coming out of our subconscious mind. It may even be something that we think we might have seen on TV a few years ago. And I said, just see how you get on and send me a little bit of feedback. So a week later, he sent me some feedback and said, I really feel that I made that story up. I really feel that, it came out of my subconscious. It's something I read in a book. It's something I saw on TV. Oh, by the way, I've stopped smoking, and I'm only drinking one glass of wine a night. So sometimes it's who cares if it was real or not, so long as the client's got the therapeutic result, because what we've done is we've repatterned the subconscious for a new way of behaving. And that's the really powerful thing. I get all sorts of wonderful people. I mean, my book is sort of, my second book is just sort of around the corner. That's a pretty big corner at the moment, but it's there. I had a person who came along because they had severe anxiety attacks. And these anxiety attacks particularly revolved around water. And in the regression, they went into an experience where they were on a big ship. And they were a little girl on a big ship, and the big ship hit an iceberg. And of course, we all know that story, but it's very important for me as the practitioner at that point not to say, oh, was that the Titanic? So I didn't, and the little girl didn't actually know the name of the ship. But what she did know was her own name and what she called. So at the end of the regression, when we'd done a lot of release for the emotion around drowning in that experience, we were able to go on Google and to find the name of that little girl on Google as one of the people who'd drowned on the Titanic. So, sometimes we don't know if these stories are real, but every so often one comes up where you can go, yeah, crikey, that was real.
The energy of, as you're talking, just hearing the way that you interact with your clients, I really get the sense that you don't have a huge point of view and you're not pushing something at someone, which I would imagine allows them to step into it just based on their own choice.
Absolutely correct, Christine. I mean, I've got to be neutral. If I have an agenda, I imprint that agenda upon the client, and then that the work becomes slightly invalid for them. My only agenda is really my intention for the session, which is the same as the client's intention, which is to really heal whatever it is that they've come to heal, or to release whatever they've come to release. So how that happens, I follow the energy of that. And so the client, it's really a client-led session, and I'm guiding and steering rather than imprinting what I want to happen.
Right, that's fabulous. I mean, I've taken lots of different sessions with lots of different people over the last 20 years, and I would say the majority of them, their intention, their target is to support where I'd like to go and what I'd like to change. But there are some people that I've been told, well, you're doing this wrong and you're doing that wrong. And it was just so intently judgmental that, right away it's like we put our barriers up, right? I could feel myself putting my barriers up and think, starting to really criticize myself and coming away from that going, I paid that person to criticize me? It's really interesting, and there's I think it's a real honor and to support someone when they're asking for change, and as we can be as kind as possible, they get more change even than they even imagined, and I get the sense, Doug, that that's what your clients feel with you.
Yeah, I often compare practitioners and therapists to car mechanics, and I say that there are some great car mechanics out there that you would happily take your car to every year for a service, and there are some that you would never ever go back to. And I aim to be one of the ones that you can take your car to whenever you need to, and that's the type of practitioner that I aim to train as well. That's how it has to be. Wow. Yes.
Amen to that. So, Doug, do you train other people to do this work as well?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I run training for regression in South Africa, Mexico, and the UK. At the moment, I'm just running it in the UK, but I'm just sort of having a little break from all of the traveling. But I'd like to take up the traveling and training probably towards the end of this year or early next year. So it's a real passion of mine. I think, I believe that the world is changing. I believe that our ability to respond to the medicine of the past, which has been pharmaceutical based, it's not disappearing, but it's diminishing. And I think that the fact that a lot of people come along with excellent energy medicine techniques is no coincidence. I think complementary therapies, whatever you want to call it at that point, energy medicine, I think are on the rise. And more people are realizing that they can create their realities or change their realities in some way by these modalities. And so I'm quite passionate about training others and training as many people as possible to take this stuff out into the world and help people to make changes for themselves.
That's fabulous. And on your website, you have a free hypnosis relaxation. When people register with you, they can receive that. That's a lovely gift. We can all use a little bit more relaxation in our lives, for sure. So you have written a book, Doug, or you're in the midst of writing a book?
The book is very nearly finished. The book is called Gifts for Your Soul, and it'll be out hopefully in the not too distant. It's literally being reformatted at this moment, and that's a collection of simple everyday healing techniques that people can practice at home. The idea is to put a lot of healing techniques into a very affordable volume. So that'll be coming out, as I say, in 2 months. What I also have is an app. The app is available on the iTunes Store and also on Google Play. And the app is called Hypnosis for Transformation. It costs 99 cents, and I guess that's about, $1.50 or something like that? It costs 99 pence, which I guess is about $1.50, and you get a bunch of free stuff with the app. There's about There's about, I think, 5 or 6, or 4 or 5 giveaway audios on there, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can pay for. But it's all lots of everyday stuff that people can use, and there's one, my most popular audio on the app. Would you believe, Christine, my most popular audio that has been downloaded more times than any other is called Money Does Grow on Trees. Who'd have believed it, eh?
Well, I love it, and I'm going to be getting it.
Okay, fabulous. But out of all of the things in the world, you know, I guess money underpins a lot of our realities, yeah?
Well, I think it does. I think for a lot of people, that's where they see the greatest struggle, and they kind of miss some of the things leading up to that can change it. But that's fabulous. I love all of the things. You've got a long list of them here. I'm looking on your website, and fabulous. Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, there's something for everyone on there, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there is. We're all going to have some fun.
If I've got a moment, I would like to say one thing about the power of the subconscious. Just to give an everyday example of how the subconscious is. Often when you've forgotten where you've left something, and you try, and you try, and you try to remember, and you can't remember perhaps what it is that you wanted to do or where you've left something behind, it's normally when you stop thinking about it that you remember. And what are you doing? You're not trying too hard. You're letting the power of the subconscious start to work. By almost forgetting about what it was you were trying to remember and relaxing a little bit, that's when the subconscious brings up what it is that you need to know. I do it all the time. I leave things around my house, keys, whatever it may be. If I try and remember, I'll never find them. But when I just relax, then I remember where I left them. The memory pops up from the subconscious. And that's a very, very basic example of the work that I do.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. And do you find that when we're relaxing, that our stress actually drops?
Oh, hugely.
And then we're actually able to kind of pick up, use our awareness on what it is that we're aware of that we don't cognitively know we're aware of.
For sure. And you know what? Most people, when they relax, they're doing something else. They're relaxing in front of the TV. They're relaxing while they're reading a book. They're doing something else. But, you know, sometimes when we just do nothing but relax, it can be hugely beneficial for our immune system, for our emotional level. Maybe we just focus on the breathing. It doesn't, you know, some people get the wrong idea about meditation or self-hypnosis sometimes. There's no great mystique to it, but we're just kind of in tune with ourselves, and stress levels drop. That's what it is, and that's what impacts our health, because we live in quite a stressful world for many people these days.
Indeed.
We have all of these gadgets and gizmos which are wonderful, but when we're a slave to them, then life can be quite stressful. So it's when we, you know, use them, we're the master of them rather than them being the master of us. Yes.
So is that why, Doug, when I'm trying to think of a name, I think of it in the middle of the night when I wake up?
Yeah. When you finally stop. Well, when you finally stop doing and you start being, you know, that's what it is, isn't it?
Okay. Awesome. That's kind of annoying sometimes, but I will try to stop being so stressed about that. Okay, we are up for our second break of the show. When we get back, we're going to continue this great conversation with Doug Buckingham. And stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Do you have something inspiring to say? Would you like a taste of being one of our inspired hosts? Get on the air on the Inspired Choices Network Open Mic Spotlight Show. The Open Mic Spotlight Show is your time to shine and inspire our global audience. Shows air at 9 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday each week. Claim your spot today. Simply contact our network owner at info@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Forget the days of 5 minutes of fame. Now you can have 55 minutes of fame. You are listening to the Open Mic Spotlight Show here on Inspired Choices Network. To call in and ask questions, call 815-880-8255 in the U.S., 613-800-8736 in Canada, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. Now back to the show.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are enjoying a great conversation with Doug Buckingham, and we're talking about how to use the power of subconscious to release your past and enhance your life now. So, Doug, I know you've talked about how you go in to release the past. Let's talk about how that can really enhance individuals' lives now and what you've actually seen occur.
Yeah. Often we have what are called triggers. We have repeating patterns in our life. We have some kind of stimulus or stimuli, if you like, which evokes the same response to certain situations. Take, a phobia, for example, is a classic example. I remember a case where I had a lady with a spider phobia a few years ago. I've worked with lots of spider phobias over the years, and she had a little house in the country, and every time she went to that little house in the country, she'd have to send her husband in to clear out the spiders because it was in the countryside and there'd be lots of spiders and she couldn't go anywhere near it. So, each time she went near the house, she'd start to, her heart would start beating a little bit faster, her palms would get sweaty, that fight or flight response within the body was activated. And so she came to me, she said, I've had enough of this. I really feel a lot of fear whenever I see a spider. And of course, it's not just my house in the country. I see them in my house in London and in the office and all of these things. And plus the fact I'm divorcing my husband. So he's not going to be there to clear away the spiders for me. So I need to be able to handle this in my life. And I said, sure. And we did. We went into hypnosis. And it's actually a relatively simple process to release the fear of some phobias, simpler phobias. And so we reframed the response so that every time she went to a house in her country, she'd feel more confident about going back into that situation. She'd feel confident about the fact that she was alone. And we're reprogramming the subconscious at this point when we're doing it in hypnosis, because this is the bit that's triggering the fear. Consciously, she knows that these spiders are tiny, that actually we have no poisonous spiders in the UK, so they can't damage her. She's a smart lady, so she knows there's nothing that spiders can actually do to her, but subconsciously the fear was still there. So over a couple of sessions, I think it was 2, maybe 3 sessions, we reframed that response in hypnosis. And so that she was able to do a couple of things. She was able to go into a house in the country, and I remember in between one of the sessions, she actually said, well, I walked into the house, and would you believe it, but there was a spider just crawling across the wall. I didn't go anywhere near it, but I was able to watch it crawling across the wall, and I watched it for about 10 minutes. Prior to this, she hadn't actually been able to see a spider on the TV, let alone going across the wall in a house. So, her life changed and she was able to clean the spiders out of her country house herself. So she was able to achieve her biggest goal, which was to divorce her husband.
Oh, dear. I'm sure that you have some wonderful giggles to yourself when you've worked with individuals, just seeing how silly our minds can be sometimes.
Well, of course I never judge, but, people are fascinating, Christine. People have, and this is part of the reason why I love what I do so much, because people have these amazing stories of how they've got to this point in time. And, some of the things that I hear are very sad, of course. I work with a lot of trauma as well. And some of just absolutely, some of the other people are fascinating. What's got them along the journey of life. Some of the little, and again, some of the little hang-ups that we have. I have a people have these odd little things in life sometimes, and, spiders is a little bit of a strange one because, consciously we all know they can't really do anything to us unless we live in Australia where they're very poisonous. But, so we have these strange hang-ups in our subconscious, and, who knows where they come from sometimes. Sometimes they're accidental. I worked with a guy who had a fear of snakes. And his rational mind said, well, how could I possibly have a fear of snakes? He said, there are no poisonous snakes in this country. And actually, I've never seen one, but I've had this since I was 5 or 7 years old. And it was a bizarre concept, of course. And it's kind of laughable if it wasn't for the fact that it wasn't so real. And every time, he'd hear the word snake, he'd actually physically shake. In the consultation, we had to say the S word because that was the extent of his phobia. This particular one actually came from a past life, and he'd been attacked by a snake in a past life, and somehow he'd carried that memory through in his energy field into the current life. And when we dealt with the situation in the past life, released it, transformed it, that was it. It's people have the strangest things. I had a lady who used to take her daughter for horse riding lessons, and she would take her daughter on Saturday mornings, and as soon as she came within probably 50 yards or 100 yards of a horse, she would develop acute rhinitis, and her nose would start streaming, and she'd be heavily bunged up. And this would last for 6 days. And then she would go back, and she would have Friday, she'd be fine. But the next day, she'd have to go back and take her daughter for another riding lesson. And the whole cycle would perpetuate. And she has been doing this, I think, for about 6 months by the time she came to me. She said, this is crazy. I don't even go near the horses, and it's just the very thought of them seems to trigger it. And again, with this one, we went back into a past life. And she'd been riding a horse into a battle. She'd been a warrior. And what had happened was the horse had actually thrown her off behind in the enemy. So she'd been actually murdered at that point because the horse had thrown her off of its back. And it was slightly odd. We had to do a slightly odd thing, which was to actually... one of the things we do with past lives is to gain resolution or closure with the characters that have been in the life and have a little dialogue. And so in this case, we had to have a little bit of a dialogue with the horse, which is slightly strange, I know. But she had a dialogue with the horse, and the horse said, well, you never asked me. I simply wasn't made for war. It scared the life out of me. I didn't want to be anywhere near there. So this lady in the regression ended up apologizing to the horse and asking for its forgiveness, which was forthcoming. And, it's the weird thing, of course. It's, if you told that story at a dinner party in the center of town, the people would laugh you away. But do you know what? Her rhinitis stopped and she never had it again.
Well, in my world, that's not unusual, but I understand that for many it is. We talk about this kind of thing all the time, Doug. But I just think it's amazing. I think it's amazing what you're doing. Here's a question that's popping in my mind now. Doug, how often would someone require to come for hypnosis?
It depends on the issue, why they're coming, Christine. Sometimes it can be a one-off session. Generally, we're talking about a series of sessions, though. Hypnosis isn't a quick fix. It does work much more quickly than traditional psychotherapy, because we're going into the subconscious much more quickly. But generally, I'm looking for most things between 2 to 3, maybe 4 sessions with people. What I do is, the way I work and the way I train other people to work is to record the sessions that we do, particularly for hypnosis, and then people can re-listen and reinforce the message in their subconscious mind by listening to the audio of those sessions. And that's, it's another reason why I have this app with all of the recordings on, is because, repetition, and scientists really understand this now, repetition of what we want to achieve basically establishes a new neural pathway in the brain. And when you have a new neural pathway, which sometimes can take 20 to 30 days to establish, sometimes it's a bit quicker, but when you have that new neural pathway, then what happens is a new emotional response happens within the energy field. When you have a new emotional response which is happening in the energy field, then what will happen is you're sending out a different vibration into the world. And when you send out a different vibration into the world, different things come into your life. And scientists, some of the people like Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and people like that who are kind of, on the edge of science moving into spirituality, know this for a fact. Mm-hmm. These guys are great advocates of hypnosis and regression because they know that this repetition of the same positive message is what really gets us from A to B and helps us to bring that change and to make it permanent.
Mm-hmm. I'm just imagining, when we talk to young children, when we talk to babies and young adults, the messages that we can gift to them can change anything that's actually occurring in their lives. We can have such an amazing impact in our own lives and in other people's lives by what we are actually saying.
Yes.
I just, you're just sending that home even more with the science, and it's fabulous.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people who are walking that talk much more in these days. I think there's a lot of authors out there who are speaking directly to the hearts and minds of children. I mean, J.K. Rowling from the UK is the obvious one. The fact that, magic is possible, and magic doesn't have to mean spells. Magic is kind of changing ourselves, is probably the most wonderful message we've had to our subconscious minds in the past 20 or 30 years. And there's a lot of other authors who are doing the similar thing, saying you can bring change. Anything is possible. You can do it. And these are wonderful messages for, not just the children, but also for the child within all of us.
Yes, agree. Well, we are up to our last break of the show, Doug. This was a very quick conversation, so we will wrap up when we get back from this commercial break. You are listening to the Open Mic Spotlight Show with my wonderful guest, Doug Buckingham, and we'll be right back after this break.
Thank you.
Do you have something inspiring to say? Would you like a taste of being one of our inspired hosts? Get on the air on the Inspired Choices Network Open Mic Spotlight Show. The Open Mic Spotlight Show is your time to shine and inspire our global audience. Shows air at 9 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday each week. Claim your spot today. Simply contact our network owner at info@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Forget the days of 5 minutes of fame. Now you can have 55 minutes of fame. You are listening to the Open Mic Spotlight Show here on Inspired Choices Network. To call in and ask questions, call 815-880-8255 in the U.S., 613-800-8736 in Canada, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. Now back to the show.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great conversation, Doug. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and everyone's enjoying it in the chat room. I'm fascinated by the mind. I'm fascinated by what we can actually impact in the world, and I love speaking with individuals like yourself who are curious enough to step into creating a greater world for all of us, especially when we come back again, because we are creating our own futures, and it's fabulous. So, Doug, where do you see yourself in the next? I know you're bringing out your book. Well, that's very, very exciting, and we would love to have you on to hear all about your book. We actually have the oh my God, my brain just went completely blank. Carol Glover, who has a show called Writing on Air. Thank you, Rhonda.
Oh, lovely.
My producer has my brain for me. Writing on Air. So she actually interviews individuals that have written books. So that's coming up. What else do you see for yourself in the near future, Doug?
Well, as we've already discussed, I ran a lot of training courses. I have hypnosis training. I have regression training coming up over the next couple of months. I'm pretty much got where I wanted to go with my app. I think there's a lot of content on there for people. And, I priced it at 99 pence or $1 something because that's a gift for people, really. At that price, it's very affordable. And the book is the first of a few. I've had a few in my head for a while. And so 3 books to start off with, and we'll see how I go after that. As mentioned a little bit earlier as well, I would like to start traveling and teaching again. I did a bit of that. I really did that from 2011 to 2016. So that's where I'm setting my intention to start taking some of the fabulous courses that I offer to other countries again. So I'm really putting it out there to the universe to bring that into being. Do you know what, Christine? I'm open. I'm open to possibilities because I think that sometimes when we have too many ideas about, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, then sometimes we miss the gift that is kind of knocking on our door. So I'm going to say I have these ideas, but heck, I may do something completely different if it comes and knocks on my door and sings the right song to me. So, who knows? I have a few plans. The universe may have other plans. That's fine.
Well, the one thing that I know about you is you're curious and you're open, as you've said, and that's just such a wonderful ground for new possibilities. So I'm sure that you'll have lots of new adventures in your future, Doug. And I certainly have enjoyed having you here on the show, and we would love to have you on the network. And if that's something that pops for you in the future, for sure, I'm sure that people would have lots and lots of questions for you and all that you're teaching in the world. This could be a platform if that works for you.
Yeah, well, it has been a joy to be here, Christine, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. And let's see how it rolls.
Yeah, let's see how it rolls.
As I say, I'm open to possibilities. So let's see what ship might come in.
Well, you've got some raving fans in the chat room already, so there you go. So if you would like to get in touch with Doug and to possibly look at areas of your life that you'd like to improve, enhance, let go of the past, create a greater future, please do connect with Doug at dougbuckingham.com, his website. Check into his app that you can get both on iTunes and Google Play. And I just checked it, and it's $1.39 Canadian. So you know what? It's not going to break the bank for sure, but it actually might break down some limitations for you. So what's one lasting thing that you'd like to share with all of the listeners, Doug?
I would like to share the fact that you can create your own reality. And if your reality is not what you want it to be at this particular moment in time, you can bring change to it. You may need somebody, perhaps like me, or perhaps somebody closer to you, who can help you a bit with that, but you can change what's happening for you. And that,
fabulous,
I think, is one of the most thrilling concepts available to humanity today, that we can create something different. We can make change. We can, Gandhi said it, be the change. But, you can change your own life. Yeah.
That's right. Well, you know what? I believe in that, and as the network is called Inspired Choices, I believe that when we are making those changes, we inspire others as well to make some new choices, and that's how we can create the world that we know is possible. So thank you again so much, Doug. It's been wonderful having you, and I'm sure that we'll have you back again soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and make sure that you're making the choices that are inspiring you and reaching forward to make the possibilities possible. Take care, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Open Mic Spotlight radio show. We will be here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Mountain, and 6 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, continue to create you with joy and inspiration.